Hello, hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to a Capital Hungry weekly psychology reminder webinar. Today's topic is understanding the difference of getting paid for your time versus getting paid for your skill. Now, this may seem like a very simple, easy to understand concept, but when it comes to trading and new traders entering the market, this concept seems to get lost as they do not understand where to put their time and effort due to the psychology around this concept I'm going to be explaining. Okay, so in the modern society, majority of people over history have primarily been employees working for an employer, right? I'm not saying that's everybody, but for the most part, it is more rare to be the employer or to be the person running the business, industry, corporation, whatever it may be. So this webinar is more catered to the majority and masses of people who come from a similar circumstance because the psychology is going to be very similar. And if you come from this circumstance or are part of the majority, including myself, right, you have to learn to change your psychology regarding money and understanding what it takes for you to actually get paid in the markets. Okay, so majority of people, including myself, come from situations of being used to getting paid for our time and hours put in, as well as doing the basic tasks and duties we have been trained on for a specific job. I don't know if anybody remembers my rant where I was just giving a little bit of history about my education and places that I've worked. And I was just telling people about the experience I've developed, like how I've worked jobs in restaurants, retail, service companies, industrial plants, factories, lumber yards, all the way from everything in between to like almost becoming an electrical apprentice to working at Royal Bank of Canada and working in a corporate office. Okay. So I've worked all these various jobs, from labor jobs to desk jobs, white collar, blue collar, everything in between. And the common theme at all of these jobs and being an employee is that you are going to get trained to do your jobs because the employer is paying you to complete these various tasks that are going to essentially work towards the employer and company achieving a end goal, right? You are just a piece of the puzzle. You are just a number contributing to this. It doesn't matter if I was in a warehouse. It doesn't matter if I was in a chemical plant. It didn't matter if I was in a corporate office, suit and tie. I still got trained on the tasks and duties that I would do, and I was still getting paid for the hours that were being put in. Okay. So most of us have had that psychology subconsciously imprinted in us for generations, from our parents following the same cycle to our grandparents following the same cycle and so forth. Now, working a job is absolutely essential. There is nothing demeaning or demoralizing about working a job or being an employee. There are many, many, many jobs out there that can be very fulfilling and people are proud to work those positions. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about here of how the majority of people who come into trading and want to be traders and want to make money out of trading, they ignore this key concept. Okay. So majority do not understand that subconsciously the psychology of getting paid to do tasks and getting paid for your time, it gets carried over when people come into trading. And this can have a major negative impacts on your trading performance because essentially getting paid as a profitable trader or a consistent trader is almost the opposite of getting paid from an employer. Okay, so let's look at just the generalization of majority of jobs out there. Just like I'm telling you, majority of jobs out there. One second here. Let me just open up this Epic Pen. So majority of jobs out there, you're going to be getting payment from an employer. You're going to be going and giving your resume out. You're going to be applying to jobs because they are looking for someone to fit a certain set, to fit and fulfill doing a certain set of duties and so forth. The employer is paying for duties and tasks to be completed during a specific time window, right? That's majority of jobs. Now, when you, for the most part, unless you already have training ahead of time or are translating skill sets from a previous job, you're going to be getting trained in some way or fashion by your employer on what the duties and tasks you will be doing, right? So you're essentially getting paid for doing the tasks that you have been trained on. You have to remember, doing the tasks that you have been trained on. Maybe you've been at a job for a year now, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. You may not remember that you originally got trained to do these very specific tasks because it becomes repetitive. It becomes second nature. It starts to become very easy, just the job. Yeah, this is what we do. Every day at the store, we got to stock these shelves. Every day at the office, I have to collect this data. Every day at the factory, we have to produce this product. It's that you get trained on all of this, right? And for showing up on those specific hours, majority of jobs, you are clocking in or clocking out. Even salary-based positions, when you get hired, they're saying, hey, you're going to be working from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. These are your working hours, right? Once you get trained on the tasks, because remember, majority of the time, you're not going to have tasks that you cannot handle because the employer does not want to put that potential risk on the market. Or sorry, put that potential risk on their business, not the market. We'll talk about the market after. What I mean by that is, yes, sometimes you may feel like you're overworked, but majority of employers have done business metrics to know how much a single resource can handle in terms of labor and workload. So they will try to push the limit on how much work a person can do for them. But there's this risk threshold where if you put too much work on one person, it can be negative and ends up becoming a risk to the business overall. If you have any human error, failures, or so forth, right? So for the majority of jobs, yes, some jobs may be labor intensive. Yes, some jobs tasks may take longer than other, but after a while, the effort needed to complete the tasks starts to go down. You can choose yourself if you want to go above or beyond, or you can choose to do the bare minimum tasks, but the payment will be the same. Okay, so understand that. As an employee, there is no real sacrifice or risk on your end. Worst comes to worst, you can lose that job if you fail the task, if you're not doing good work, if you're not showing up on time. But at the end of the day, the job market is absolutely huge. The worst case is you go get a new job. That's truly the reality of it. There is minimal or no further self-development needed to maintain the job. It is very easy and almost suggested to become stagnant out of position. Learn to do the position, make your money, clock in day and out, and sit there for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and so forth. Outside of working hours is your time and your business. Majority of people, after they clock out, that's it. Their workday is done. They're not taking work home with them. They're not trying to see what more they can do for their job. Their mind is completely cut off from that point, right? So you can understand that this is very normal in society. This is what the masses are generally a part of, and that's perfectly fine. But if you want to come into trading, you have to completely reset your mind that majority of this is going to actually be negative if you start to translate the same behavior in your trading, okay? In trading, payment is not dependent on any employer, business, or somebody handing you a check. You're potentially going to be getting paid from the market, but it's all based on your decisions, right? Well, so for example, what I mean by that is, like at a job, yeah, maybe one day you're feeling great and you want to be very productive and you go hard in the paint. You're still going to get paid that same $100 in the day. Maybe next day you're feeling a little bit more sick and you're just doing the bare minimum, taking a little bit more breaks, slouching around, trying to kill time. You're still going to get the same $100 in that day, right? You're hired as the employee. You're still doing the tasks. You're still showing up for the time. You're still going to get that payment. It's a guaranteed that if you do that bare minimum, you're going to get that payment. In trading, there is zero guarantee of doing some bare minimum work to get payment. It's actually the opposite. If you do bare minimum work and bring that same type of attitude into trading, you'll actually end up losing money. That's another thing I forgot to include here, which is a part of the sacrifice or risk. At a job as an employee, you can't really lose money. You can lose out on potential pay if you miss working days or if you get fired, but you're not losing any of the money you've already potentially earned. That risk isn't there. That risk is on the business owner, the person running the company. If the company ever fails, or if they lose sales, or if they lose contracts and so forth, that risk isn't on you as the employee, right? So in trading, you get paid dependent on your skill set, experience, risk management, and emotional control, right? You do not get paid to just show up or stare at the chart. People think that if they come into trading and they just stare at the chart for 4 hours, that information is going to start to click in their head, that they're going to start to become a good trader, that is them putting in their chart hours, because they don't even understand what chart hours mean. They think chart hours is the same as work hours. If you just go to work for 8 hours, regardless of what you really do at work, if you show up and put the time in, you're going to get paid. That is not the same thing here. And the reason why I'm talking about this is there are way too many people who are coming to the charts for hours, but doing absolutely nothing. They're watching TV on the side, they're playing some video games, they're staring at the charts, they're cycling through time frames, but they're not actually doing anything that's going to be developing any of the aspects needed to get paid. What are you doing to develop your skill set during the chart hours? What are you doing to develop your experience? How are you practicing or developing risk management? How are you practicing or developing emotional control? The hours that you put into this various aspects that get you paid is what's actually going to end up getting you paid. It's that simple. Simply showing up is not enough. It's like if you wanted to be a professional athlete, or if you wanted to be a business owner or a professional chef and you want to run your own restaurant. You can't be just simply showing up. You're the one running the show. You're the one who has to make sure all the gears are working in hand and the overall machine is working and running. It's the same thing in trading. Everything is dependent on you. All the accountability, all the responsibility, it's dependent on you. Even in the workplace, that doesn't exist. Worst case, the accountability and responsibility of your job is doing the tasks. Worst case, if you fail those tasks, you get fired. You don't really get penalized. You don't get your money taken away. You don't really have to, you just get fired. You go find a new job. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you do not get paid just to show up or stare at the chart. That is not nearly enough to attain the end result of trading profit. In trading, full sacrifice of a person is needed into training themselves. Remember, at any job you've been to or worked at, you've had some type of orientation, some type of training program you have to go through, some type of on-site training where you're working with another person who's showing you the ropes. Unless you go out of your way to join a trading group like Capital Hungry, that doesn't exist in the markets. Yes, through maybe your education of going through learning about economics or general business, yeah, you can learn a little bit about what trading is involved in, right? But the things such as technical skill sets, fundamental skill sets, a lot of this information that's directly correlated to trading, you will have to learn through trial and error and train yourself, right? Nobody, because you're looking to pay yourself. You're looking to work for yourself. You're looking to pay yourself. You're looking to create your own hours and do all these advantageous things, but you're not looking at the other flip side of all the work and effort it takes to have those advantages in life. Okay? So in trading, self-learning and self-development is essential. Consistent maintenance consistent maintenance or growth. Just made a little typo here. Just consistent maintenance or growth of skills is always needed, as trading is a very sensitive game. Remember, like I said, at the job where you're doing the bare minimum tasks and getting paid for your time, if you're feeling great one day, if you're feeling like shit one day, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling vengeful, if you're feeling anxiety or stressed, as long as you show up, you get paid. If you stay that 8-hour shift, no matter how you're feeling, if you did the bare minimum work, you get paid. In trading, it's actually the opposite. If you're feeling stressed, anxious, feeling over and hyper emotional, and you are not controlling your emotions, you are not maintaining your skills and keeping your knives and tools sharp, you can actually end up losing money. It's not just that if you feel like shit, you might not gain profit that day and might not get paid. You can actually end up backtracking and losing money, right? And not just that. Let's just say you're working a job and the job pays, I don't know, $1,000 a month, right? And for 10 months, you're doing great at the job and you end up making $10,000 total, $1,000 a month. But on month 11, you end up making a fatal error and mistake due to being lost in your own emotions that ends up costing the company and you get fired, right? That fatal error and mistake means you get fired and lose that job. It doesn't mean you lose that $10,000 that you've earned, right? You can still you still have that 10,000 in the bank. Now you got to go find a new job. Trading is 10 times more sensitive and way more riskier than that. In trading, let's just say you're doing great for 10 months. You make $10,000, but now you become emotionally charged because of something going on in your life and you make some fatal errors and mistakes. Well, now you lose that $10,000 that you've just been working 10 months to build. It is completely night and day difference, but most people neglect the psychological changes that we have to make to actually become adaptive to trading and remove ourselves from this mindset, right? So constant self-development is needed, and not just self-development in terms of your emotions, constant self-development in terms of what's going on in the real world, in the financial markets, constant adaptation of price changes, technicals, fundamentals, and your own psychology is needed. You always have to be in a game where you are the student and constantly learning. In the workplace, that's not the same. What? Maybe your job duties change every few years and you get retrained on it, and maybe one aspect of your job changed. You know what I mean? Maybe your job updated some equipment they use or technology they use for the same duties, but now you're just using a bit of a different process and you still get trained on that. There's not really constant self-development. There's not really a constant maintenance or growth of your skills needed. And there's not that same risk if you don't maintain your skills or consistently grow your knowledge, okay? In trading, there are no working hours like, oh, I'm going to be at the charts from 9 to 5, or I'm trading. There are hours you may trade, like I explained in the trading plan webinar of if you're a scalper, you choose a 2-hour window to sit at the charts. If you're a day trader, you're going on an alert system and so forth. But there are no working hours. There's no shift, right? To become great at this craft, it essentially becomes your life. It becomes your lifestyle, from studying, analysis, research, backtesting, trading itself, networking with other traders to learn ins and outs, personal development of your psychology, emotions, and so forth. Okay? So what we can see is that the majority of us are a part of this pool or have come from this pool, right? But the main takeaway point is that if we keep the same psychology as we've had from being an employee and drag that into trading, it's going to lead to failure because it's almost the exact opposite. Another main takeaway point I want you all to understand that I hammer into your heads is that trading and becoming a successful trader is no different than going on the pursuit to have any other high paying job in this society that may take years of education, years of practical actual work and practice, years of experience developing and networking, like I've talked about in other webinars, doctors, engineers, owning a business and being a successful entrepreneur, lawyer, high paying lawyers, athletes, whatever it may be, right? But people think because of what's advertised on social media that in trading, if you just show up at the charts, if you just show up with your minimal effort without any sacrifice, with no further development of yourself, people think they'll find success. It's completely backwards. And people being manipulated in this way isn't their fault. They're coming from this mindset of how they've been so used to getting paid, of how their dad's been getting paid, mom's getting paid, grandparents have gotten paid in the same type of psychological format, right? And they also come from an area where you're getting advertised about trading through social media from marketers and salesmen who are trying to make trading look as easy as possible to sell a course. Imagine I came out tomorrow with a course on becoming a doctor tomorrow, on becoming a personal self-licensed doctor, and how easy it is, and how if you take this week course, you can do surgeries next week. Think about how much shit I would get for that. Think about how people would be like, what the fuck? This is clearly a scam. You have to go through schooling for years to become a doctor. You have to get an actual degree. You have to have years of practice, experience, training, skill set development, the emotional control that comes with being a doctor, and the potential negatives of dealing with someone's health and life in your hands. Right? But all these marketers and salesmen coming out with trading courses that guarantee 90% success rate, or you learning a system to become successful in a month or a couple of weeks in a boot camp, and nobody bats an eye. Everybody thinks that's normal. It's not, right? So just understand, as you are looking to become a full-time trader or even a part-time trader, if you still want to keep your job, perfectly normal, perfectly normal. I kept my job up until March 2020, halfway through 2020, I think it was. Even when I was making consistent money trading, even when I was making consistent money from the capital hungry business and other investment ventures, making me some consistent money as well, outside of trading, outside of the capital hungry business, right? But I only started to find success in trading and in the capital hungry business when I switched my mindset to this. Remember that story where I told you guys I started putting in very basic minimal effort at the job and actually started doing even worse, but was still catching the same paycheck for a year or 2 years until I quit the job. Even when I was becoming an asshole at the job, because of them needing people and because of the tasks and duties I was trained on, I was doing the bare minimum and even less than the minimum and still getting paid. And I directed all of my effort, all of my time, all of my energy into trading and into capital hungry, and adjusted my mindset to this, that knowing for capital hungry to make money, or knowing for my trading to make money, the full responsibility, the full accountability is on nobody but myself. Not an employer, not a manager, not my mom, not my dad, not a friend, nothing but myself. All the skill set development needed in business, whether it was like, for example, capital hungry business. Yes, I enjoy this aspect of it, sharing information, being passionate about the markets, helping others grow, and also developing my trading through this. But I didn't enjoy learning about the accounting side, the taxes side, the customer service, all the back end of the technology and customer service, the subscription management and so forth. But for Capital Hungry to be successful, all of that is needed for this business. I had to put full effort into those various tasks, right? In trading, I love to do analysis. I love to do market research, understand the fundamentals, understand the technicals. I don't enjoy being patient and waiting to take entries, waiting for profit. I don't enjoy the emotions that come into play where you start doubting yourself. You start to get greed, and you start to get greed when you're really winning. You start to get vengeful when you're losing. I don't enjoy all that, but it's 100% needed. That effort, time, and those skill sets have to be developed to become profitable in trading. And that's not dependent on anybody but yourself. Full responsibility and accountability of that is dependent on you, right? So I know this may seem like a very, very simple concept, but when you really break it down, you can see the difference in psychology between the two. You know what I mean? Does that make sense to everybody? So you may be a part of this psychological mindset, and you may be working a job and you may want to keep that job. 100% normal. But you have to learn to keep this division in your brain, or make this section in your brain that's specifically a different mindset for trading. That's specifically a different mindset for a business you may be wanting to develop. Anything outside of a job that you want to be great at is going to require this mindset, that everything is dependent on you. It's going to have sacrifice from you. There's going to be risk required from you. There's going to be potential ups and downs. There's going to be endless self-development and maintenance and growth of skills, endless learning, and you get paid on your skill set. Okay. So I don't want to make this too long. This coincides and goes hand in hand with a lot of other psychology webinars as well. So hopefully everybody enjoys that. If that made sense to everybody, whoever's in this webinar right now, let me know. Okay. All right, everybody. So it looks like it made sense. I'm going to save and upload this. I'll see you guys in like a few minutes for the weekly recap.